They sent him to one of the UK's deadliest prisons, where humiliation and torture became his daily routine.
To play the fiddler.
They attacked his wife, killed his unborn child. They thought they broke him, but what they didn't know, that this quiet man used to snap bones for money. And inside those walls, they didn't break him. They built something worse. They turned Tommy into a brutal psychopath killer. Tommy was a professional boxer, handsome, focused, and disciplined. He and his lovely girlfriend Alyssa, who was pregnant with their first child. Everyone who knew them was envious of their love. As the night went on, a riot erupted in the middle of the city. Black people were protesting against the discriminatory treatment of white people. But unfortunately, looting also occurred all over the city at that time. Opportunistic thieves took advantage of the chaos and ransacked many stores. They were 4 young men with a plan to rob an expensive watch shop. Jack was the ringleader, but he was an arrogant and annoying fellow. He had 3 friends named Mason, Angelpiece, and Seco. They all knew each other well and had a hidden garage with 2 sport bikes. They hopped on their bikes and rode through the quiet streets. They arrived at the watch shop and quickly smashed the glass window. They snatched everything they could get their hands on. However, the shop owner was brave and tried to stop them. Meanwhile, Jack, being emotional and hot-headed, shot the shop owner dead on the spot. Soon after, the situation escalated quickly, but Jack remained calm and collected, then drove away, as if nothing had happened afterward. The 4 of them went back to the garage to hide their bikes in the stolen items. Then they stole a car to make their getaway. At that time, Jack had an appointment with a female, but he didn't return all the loot. Instead, he kept one of the most expensive watches for himself. What Jack and his friends didn't know was that the police had blocked all the roads, and they were driving a stolen car.
Slow down! Slow down!
When they were pulled over, they panicked and ran in different directions. The police suspected them of committing a crime and arrested them. Although they were caught, they were only charged with car theft, not murder and robbery in the end. Jack and his gang learned a harsh lesson that crime never pays. They were caught because of their greed and arrogance. The once quiet night was now full of the sounds of police sirens, and the young men's lives were forever changed. Sometime later, Alyssa started working as an intern lawyer, and her latest task was to interrogate Jack about his recent activities. Jack was known to be an arrogant and self-centered individual, and he didn't care about what Alyssa had to say.
Jake, you were arrested for being carried by a motor vehicle taken without consent and resisting arrest.
Even if the police wanted to arrest him, Jack was convinced that nobody would care about him anyway, despite Jack's behavior. Alyssa tried to advise him and asked him to reconsider his actions. She urged him to turn his life around because he was still young and had the potential to do good.
None at all?
Supportive! I don't got no fucking family. I ain't got no dad, and I ain't got no mum. She never cared about me. She never cared when her boyfriend used to torture me.
However, Jack didn't listen to her and thought her advice was meaningless. He left her office and met up with Mason and Seco soon after another young man named Esai. It turned out that he was involved in the robbery that Jack and the others had committed, and he demanded that Alyssa testify in their favor. He wanted Alyssa to say that Jack, Mason, Anglepiece, and Seco were well-behaved and deserved only house arrest. However, she refused because of Jack's arrogance. Hearing that made Esai angry, and he lashed out at Alyssa by hitting her. Luckily, the whole incident was caught on CCTV, and Alyssa used the opportunity to run into her office and lock the door. She immediately called for help, while the news on the television reported a robbery of an expensive watch that resulted in the owner's death. One of the stolen watches was a Daytona watch, adorned with diamonds, making it incredibly valuable. As Alyssa watched, she noticed that the watch on Jack's wrist was the same one that had been mentioned in the news about a recent robbery. Her heart raced as she realized that Jack and his gang were the robbers. Fear gripped her tightly, but to her relief, Jack and his men left her unharmed later at a cafe.
You ain't gonna talk, man. She ain't got nothing on us. Why do you want to complicate things? Why you acting all confused.com, bruv? Well, it was you that made us get pulled over by feds in a stolen car.
Jack appeared to be in turmoil and wanted to eliminate Alyssa as a witness. However, Mason disagreed. knowing that it would only create more trouble for them, but Jack couldn't ignore the thought of Alyssa being a threat and forced Mason to agree with him that evening. As Alyssa prepared to leave and call Tommy, someone smashed her car window and attacked her in no time. Tommy received news of the attack and rushed to the hospital to find her lying in a coma as he watched her. His sadness was palpable, realizing that the love of his life was now helpless and fighting for her life. The next day, Alyssa woke up feeling pain coursing through her body. She touched her face and felt a bump that she didn't remember having, shortly after Tommy questioned her about the attacker who had harmed her there.
Tommy the baby.
It's okay. It's okay.
She tried to recall the face of the person who had caused her harm, but all she could muster was the possibility that it was one of the robbers she had seen on TV, the same thieves who had stolen Jack's watch, which led her to the realization of the crime. However, Alyssa refused to reveal their identities to Tommy out of fear of retaliation. She knew that the robbers would not hesitate to come back to finish what they started, so he let it go, knowing that he would have to wait until Alyssa was ready to reveal the truth. Meanwhile, Jack and his crew were in police custody facing interrogation for new charges of assault. The police were trying to link them to the robbery of the watch. Unfortunately, the evidence was not sufficient to prove their guilt in court, and they only received a 2-year sentence for theft and assault. Later, Alyssa discovered that the baby growing in her womb was having health problems. Sadly, she miscarried the child that she and Tommy had wanted so badly. The loss left Tommy feeling complete devastated, his heart shattered into a million pieces. After the incident, Alyssa was left feeling traumatized and couldn't even bring herself to touch Tommy. She believed that she was useless because she had undergone surgery that made it impossible for her to ever have children. Despite this, he was insistent that he loved her for who she was and suggested that they could adopt the child and build a life together. And sadly, things took a turn for the worse when Alyssa began to blame Tommy for not being there for her when she needed him the most. At that time, he was unable to defend himself and felt guilty for not being able to support her properly. Tommy couldn't bear the reality of losing Alyssa and asked his friend Kevin to investigate who she had been dealing with. Before going to the hospital, it turned out that she had been working with a group of youth named Jack, Mason, Seiko, Angel, Peace, and Cy, who had been involved in a car theft case.
Please don't go.
There's nothing left.
Despite Tommy's efforts, Alyssa decided to leave him a week later. She was unable to accept what had happened to her and continued to blame him for everything that went wrong. At that moment, he was left feeling devastated and worthless, and he burned all the baby equipment he had prepared for their child because all of that Tommy had a burning desire for revenge. Soon after, he made up his mind to take action and headed straight towards the violent protesters. With a fierce determination, he pounced on 2 patrol police officers and attacked them. Although the police quickly arrested Tommy, he didn't feel scared or anxious. He was found guilty and sentenced to 2 years in prison. He spent 2 weeks in temporary detention before being transferred to a youth prison there. The prison warden ordered Tommy to strip naked to ensure that he didn't have any sharp objects that could harm others. One of the wardens who examined Tommy was called Nas. He ruled the prison like a king and did whatever he wanted shortly after.
Life sentence. Would you like to make a statement?
Tommy underwent an interview with the wardens to provide them with his background information. He told them that he was an orphan and had no family or friends.
You're a tough lad, are you? You want to play? Come on, then! Big lad, are you? Come on!
Tommy to his cell, and before long the sound of an emergency alarm pierced the air. Then he quickly locked Tommy in and sprinted off to deal with the situation. It turned out that an inmate
Don't speak no more because I told him that he went too far with that.
What's it? You're saying he did it?
I feel partly responsible, but yes, that is what I'm saying.
Why should I believe you?
Because Jake's got it in his head that your girl's gonna talk and get him put away for life.
All the prisoners were back to their usual routine when Jack and Seiko finished eating. They returned to their cell. At that time, Tommy saw this and asked Harry to cause a commotion shortly after Tommy followed Jack into the cell. While Harry stood up on the table, then Harry spoke out against Nas' cruel torture methods, which often led to prisoner hurting themselves, and the terrible food they were given at that time. The
Shit food, overcrowded cells, suicides every week.
other prisoners were eager to hear what Harry had to say, and they began to support him. It turned out that Amate also shared Harry's dissatisfaction with Na's bullying, so the prisoners became even more agitated. However, the prison officials were unable to control the angry mob, and chaos broke out there. Mason was the first to attack Ness, and the other prisoners quickly followed suit. Meanwhile, Tommy fought his way past Seiko and entered the prison only to be attacked by Jack with a wooden stick. At that moment, Tommy was badly beaten and could not defend himself soon after Jack was about to stab Tommy in the eye with the stick. But Tommy had a trick up his sleeve there. He pretended to faint, and then used a plastic knife from his pocket to stab Jack in the abdomen, piercing his lung. Then Jack lay lifeless on the ground, and the prison guards quickly arrived and subdued Tommy. 1 week later, Mason was released from prison and reunited with his family who had come to pick him up there. Amate promised to help Mason find a job. On the other hand, Tommy's life took a turn for the worse when he lost one of his eyes, but instead of breaking down, he rose up since that day.